All right, guys, let's get started here. There is lots to talk about, and you guys are here for this XRP. And my name is Zia. Welcome to Crypto Polaris. Sorry, I've been off for the last few days, super busy days, but it's nice to be back. And I cannot wait to talk about XRP. It's going to be exciting times for all of us here. So, XRP's got a lot of exciting things, guys. All right, guys, here's the agenda. Let's talk about this. I want to walk you through the actual history of how this whole XRP came about, who created XRP. It's important to understand that before you truly understand where the price is going. All right. And then, of course, it's very important to understand how the Genius Act and the Clarity Act have a direct impact on the future of XRP, Ripple, the company, as well as Ripple's USD stablecoin. All right. And also the opportunities. I want to show you exactly what the opportunities are, which is very important. And last but not least, why you're here is for price prediction. Okay, so let's go to the next. All right. So the history of Ripple and XRP is quite interesting, guys. And I tried to put it from left to right in terms of a chronological order. So let's start with the left side, okay? We have back in 2011, that's really when XRP started. XRP was really created to become the next iteration of Bitcoin, not as a store of value. It is not here to replace Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was not able to be programmed back then, still isn't. And they wanted to create something new that allowed actual money to move real fast, do cross-border payment and all of that. So that was the genesis behind 2011 with three guys, David Schwartz, Jeb McClab, and also Arthur Britto. There were three guys that actually started this. So anyhow, fast forward a year later, and what happened was the whole thing was put under a new company called Ripple Labs. And that's where Chris Larson and a couple other co-founders came about and created something called OpenCoin, and XRP and XRP Ledger were all put under that. And then the name changed to Ripple Labs. Okay, important to understand. But then between 2013 and 2019, they really got their tractions going. They had lots of deals that they cut in terms of doing cross-border payment, and they had a lot of partnerships with banks, SBI Bank, MoneyGram, and Santander Bank in Spain. But then come 2020, I remember that day vividly. Gary Gensler, our old SEC chairman, sued XRP as a security. Oh my God. It was sitting around 80 cents for XRP and it tanked all the way to the teens. And a lot of people got hurt because of this. So let's move forward. So what happened now? Last year, 2024, a lot of clarity started to happen. Donald Trump came into as the president of the United States. He replaced Gary Gensler with someone else. So that really gave some momentum for Ripple and then XRP to begin to have some level of adoption. Now, people were still scared to do business with Ripple, who actually uses their network to run XRP Ledger, that runs XRP, and that also runs their stablecoin called Ripple USD. Ripple USD was really created in 2024, okay? And now let's fast forward to today, 2025, and what are the catalysts? Most important catalyst, we now have Clarity Act and we now have Genius Act. And I'm going to talk about this, why this matters. And this really is going to propel Ripple to the next level. Ripple shares were down to $2. Right around this Genius Act that got passed, which is a stable coin, Ripple hit all-time high of $3.66, and it's not stopping. So let's talk about what is happening, all right? So what are the impacts of Genius Act and the Clarity Act? Just so you all understand, only right now the Genius Act has been signed by Donald Trump into law. It is a stable coin, and such as USDC, such as USDT, and with respect to XRP, the company that runs XRP indirectly, but oversees the development of XRP, they also have a stable coin called Ripple USD. So that is going to push forward Ripple's implementation They actually have two implementations. I know the names are very confusing. So just think of Ripple Lab as the company. They are the guardian of XRP and RLUSD, which is the Ripple USD. So the Genius Act impacts Ripple greatly, and that's why the shares went up. There's also another one that the lawsuit took place over, which is now the Clarity Act. Clarity Act really tells you which tokens or coins are actually a commodity and which are just under the SEC. Guess what? Ripple is not going to be under SEC. XRP is going to be deemed as a commodity. That's what Clarity Act does. So this is a huge, huge deal. So there are four major reasons why these things matter. One, XRP will be deemed within a month or less, and the lawsuit will disappear, and that's going to make XRP a commodity. And it will be overseen by not SEC, thank goodness. It will be overseen by CFTC. Okay? They're the ones that do gold, silver, commodities, as well as they're going to be doing Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, thank goodness. Second, let's just go to the right. Swift market share. And I'm going to do price prediction based on just the Swift side of it. But XRP and Ripple are much bigger than Swift. But Swift is a huge market, so we'll talk about that. And what's going to happen is now XRP can start to augment or replace or some of the market shares from Swift. Swift is for international wires, okay? And I have another video you can listen to, and that actually does a deep dive into Swift. Now, institutions, because the Clarity Act, the institutions are now going to accept XRP as well as Ripple to do business, such as banks and others. And then, of course, I talk about the stablecoin. The stablecoin doesn't have direct correlation to XRP, but it has an adoption of Ripple with Ripple USD. And sometimes Ripple USD is not sufficient. It will need ODL, on-demand liquidity, from XRP. And so, guys, this is great time to talk about XRP because XRP is going to surprise you on the upside. All right. So, what are the opportunities? Guys, look at this. XRP and Ripple USD is playing in at least three quadrillion. That's what Q stands for. Each quadrillion is $1,000 trillion. We're talking about $3,000 trillion worth of market opportunity. And I'm going to do some calculations just on $5 trillion, not 3 quadrillion. And you'll see what the price prediction is based on just $5 trillion. But in any case, what are these opportunities? Let's look at it from left to right. We got the ACH just in US. That's an $80 trillion volume. We got the Fedwire and the chips. This has to do with federal government, okay, and bank-to-bank transfers. That is 1 quadrillion, $1,000 trillion just for Fedwire. And then you got 570 trillion for the chips side of volume, all right? Let's keep going. This is important because XRP is going to be playing in these marketplaces through Ripple. Then you got the RTP and FedNow. And if you guys want to know all of these things, just Google. But it really is a way to transfer money within the United States from bank to bank and all of that. All right? And I've given you some details here, what the pros and cons are. I don't want to bore you with that. You can pause this and look at it more carefully. But FedNow moves, it's a new one. It only moves $300 billion only. Under the RTP and under the FedNow, only $20 billion. Okay? Move to the right. You got your Visa, MasterCard, American Express, everything else. Within US, that's about $10 trillion. Globally, $38 trillion. That's a huge market for Ripple and XRP to play in. Then we have fintechs. Zia, what is a fintech? You guys use Venmo, PayPal, all sorts of Zelle. They are all under what's called fintech. And within the fintech, you've got $11 trillion in US that moves around and $20 trillion globally that moves around. Okay? I hope you're keeping up with this. Last but not least is the crypto rails. So before all of this Clarity Act and all of these things with Ripple, they were only playing in the crypto rail business. Now, Ripple can take XRP to the next level because of the Clarity Act. Okay? So that's only $12 trillion. And these guys are moving into the other traditional finance area from left to right. So you got your ACH, Fedwire, RTP, which is now FedNow, Card Network, FinTech, and crypto rails. Exciting times. 3 quadrillion market, or another way to look at it, 3 quadrillion addressable market that Ripple slash XRP slash Ripple USD are going to start to play in. They haven't even started, guys. All right. So what's next? What is Ripple's plan? Ripple, number one, uses XRP as a bridge currency. What the heck is a bridge currency? And I'm going to dive into this. When you want to send money from US to, let's say, Philippines, what do you have to do? Bank A goes to some other bank B in another country. Then bank B uses SWIFT to send money to Philippines. It takes anywhere between 3 days to 10 days, guys. And if the money gets lost, it's a problem. So XRP does this instantaneously using Ripple Network. And Google these things, educate yourself. But that is the next generation of payment settlement that is going to happen. Now, one click, money from US shows up in Philippines. No middleman. Can you imagine what happens to the fees and all of that? Almost nothing. Okay? On-demand liquidity, that's very important. And that's related to number 3. And I'll talk about both at the same time. So there's a thing in the wiring business for international wiring. Bank A sending money to Bank B. Let's say Bank A is in US in USD. Bank B is in England in pounds. Bank A must have a bank account with Bank B holding the pounds in that local currency. And the reverse is true, where Bank B must hold also money in US in USD. So they are freezing this liquidity, frozen. That's called nostro vostro. It's a Latin word for, they use it in financial terms, to hold money on both sides. Okay? And that money is locked up. And that is number 4. There's $27 trillion just to do nostro vostro around the world, is frozen in time. So when you have XRP released into the wild, you have on-demand liquidity. There is no need for a nostro vostro. Are you following me? That just reduces fees, instantaneous payment, releases another $27 trillion into the economy that is locked up right now. A lot to observe, I understand. So let's go to 5. 5 has to do with the stablecoin, and Ripple has plans to do stablecoin. So not everything will use XRP. Ripple will also use Ripple USD. There's a need for both for solutions, okay? And then Ripple, using XRP, is getting into decentralized finance as opposed to traditional finance. In traditional finance, you need bank. You got your Wall Street, you got your investor banks, you name it. In decentralized finance, 2 people can send money back and forth without a bank in the middle. XRP is going to empower that. All right? So let's go to the next one, which is really the price prediction, and that is why you are here. All right, guys? So let me explain to you the price. Let's just jump to it. Yellow, let's focus on that. Today's price is $3.36. Let's scroll over. By 2030, on the low end, it goes to $45. And on the high end, it goes to $75. So we got a range of 45 to 75. How did I get to that? With facts and figures and some assumptions. So there's an interview out there recently where the CEO of Ripple says that they are going to capture 14% of the SWIFT market. The SWIFT market, if you look right here where I'm highlighting, is a $5 trillion a day. They transfer $5 trillion a day. He said he's going to grab 14% of that market share. You know, he's a CEO. He can say whatever he wants. So I say, you know what? Maybe he's going to capture only 25% of that. So if you reduce that, that's about $175 billion out of the $5 trillion. So far, so good. These are the assumptions. I'm discounting it heavily to calculate my price prediction. So given today's $5 trillion. According to Brad, the CEO of Ripple, they currently move on the XRP ledger about $292 million. That's nothing, guys. $292 million right now. So the market opportunity is right now about 55% goes through using XRP. That's 55%, 45%. So you do the percentages here off the 292. That's what you get, 160 and 131. That's today, okay? Only $160 million worth of XRP are moving to do all sorts of cross-border payments and things like that. This has nothing to do with XRP volume. This has to do with the XRP ODL, okay? So please don't get all excited. Zia, there's $1 billion worth of transactions happening every day on XRP. I'm not talking about XRP trading. I'm talking about the ODL, on-demand liquidity, being utilized for XRP for doing all sorts of transfers of money, okay? So now, using this, go to let's 2030, okay? So we got 175 right here. So on 2030, what I'm doing here, guys, in blue, is let's assume XRP will only get 30% of that, and the stablecoin will get 70%. So then you get a volume of $52 billion, okay, in 2030. And that is all based on 30% of $175 billion. So what that does is that allows me to calculate what is the growth factor, 327 times. I reduce it by another 10%. Let's give it another discount. And I get $45. Now, guys, it's important to understand, you're probably going to say, well, gee, today, as of today, we only have 59 billion XRP tokens released. But the total XRP ever can have is 100 billion. So there's about 41 billion that's still locked up with the insiders. But I assume in my calculation, it no longer is 59 billion. I said, let's go. All 100 billion is released. And based on that, I get $45, okay? That brings the market cap to $4.5 trillion. I hope you're with me. So I'm not gonna go through and explain the rationale for this, but that's all based on having 50% as opposed to 30%. So 30% is low end, 50% is on the high end for XRP. Then you get $75 and you come over here. That gives you a market cap of $7.5 trillion. Very, very doable, guys. Unrealistic in some people's head, but if you do the math the way I've done the math, it is not unrealistic. It is very realistic. So guys, I am super, super excited about XRP, XRP Ledger for XRP, and moving money for the stable coin called Ripple USD. And overall, you have the company called Ripple Labs that manages all of these. And they are the ones who have all these contracts, guys. They are working with American Express, Bank of America, Santander in Spain, and on and on and on. They're going to also, in my price prediction, it is only for SWIFT. I did not even take into account, what if they get involved in FedNow? And there are discussions with FedNow. What if they get into involvement with the credit card? There's discussions to move money on the credit card. They are also working with building CBDC in other countries, not US. US will not allow CBDC. They're working in Bhutan and a few other countries to build their CBDC using XRP. So I did not even include all of that in my price prediction. If I do that, then we're talking about much, much, much higher price for XRP. So I just did one sliver, which is SWIFT for international payment. And based on that, you get $45 to $75. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this very much, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification, and let me know what you think, what I should work on. And I look forward to more and more videos to do. Super excited to be back. Thank you.